You know, it's unfortunate to watch the country like descend into that again. You know, racial issues are hard to tackle because it's we're very susceptible to it, and unfortunately, we've backslid into a period of white racial backlash again, where the people around the country are they're just like, I mean, the Trump administration literally just treats any black person as unqualified and fires them from the federal government. Like that's what Pete Hegseth is doing in the Department of Defense. It's just like out and out racism. It's like a racial purge of the government. It's really bizarre. They're trying to like resegregate the country.
Where did that happen where they were firing black people?
I mean, I don't know the names off the top of my head, but yeah.
That sounds not true.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, because like, I'll put it this way, even if it were true, it's so overt that like...
Yeah, they're being really overt about it. I mean, Donald Trump is going on television and going, planes are crashing because of DEI. So
but DEI is a philosophy, is an ideology.
He's saying because there are unqualified air traffic controllers because they were hired because they're people of color. It's racist. He's racist. He's a racist man, and he's issuing racist policy, and the entire country is going along with it because we're in a period of white racial backlash.
When do you think he became racist?
I think he's been racist his whole fucking life.
Boy, 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 boy. So we got to talk about this fascinating clip from Tim Pool's show that I think is a perfect example of how brainwashed some people in this country really are, particularly liberals, progressives, who only get their news from mainstream liberal media outlets and from progressive news sources, right? These people are very, very, very uninformed, especially when it comes to President Trump, okay? And I think that this conversation that Tim Pool had with liberal far-left comedian Adam Conover is exactly what I'm talking about, because this guy seemed to be stunned when Tim Pool started to school him on the Charlottesville both sides hoax. I mean, I think everybody is familiar with how the mainstream liberal media falsely claimed that President Trump was saying that there are very fine people on both sides, including the neo-Nazis and all the other people who were there too, right? Like, when President Trump clearly was not referring to the neo-Nazis / white nationalists, right? But again, the mainstream liberal media, they pushed this hoax so hard that some people have become permanently brainwashed. And even when they admitted that, yeah, we lied about that, right? They never actually really came out and told the American people that, yeah, we were not honest, okay, when we were accusing President Trump of saying that on both sides, there are very fine people, including the white nationalists and the neo-Nazis. And I think this clip is exactly what I'm talking about, right? It really is a damning example of how the media has failed the American people. So without further ado, roll this clip.
Bro, Donald Trump dumped food into a fish pond after Shinzo Abe did. Why are you trying to make that a negative story? I don't even know
what that was like, talking about there.
It's all of these hoaxes. The very fine people hoax.
I mean, I remember the line. Yeah,
Trump never called Nazis fine people.
He said there were very fine people on both sides,
except the neo-Nazis and white nationalists, who should be condemned totally.
He said that.
Holy shit, brother!
I don't live in your bubble, man.
You don't live in the fucking news, dude. Come the fuck on. You don't read the fucking news. This is what fucking blows my mind.
No, I just don't have your obsessions.
No, Trump did not call neo-Nazis and white supremacists very fine people. Bro, it's been almost 10 years and you still think he did. That's what's fucked up.
I didn't say I think he did. I just don't know what you're talking about because I don't listen to your shit.
It's not about listening to my shit, bro. It's reading the news. It's fact checking. Bro, I got Snopes for you. They're not a conservative publication. Even Snopes was like, guys, stop saying this.
I don't know why you're shouting at me. I was just asking you to explain.
Because the issue we have, and I apologize, because I'm not trying to shout at you, I'm shouting in exasperation, that we've had two liberals on in the past 2 weeks who didn't know this. And I'm just like, for the love of all is holy, all I do all day is I read probably 500 news articles every single day from CNN, the New York Times, MSNBC, and all their aggregates. And then liberals come on and they believe things that were debunked 8 years ago.
I didn't say I believed it. I was just asking what you were talking about.
You didn't know this.
Yeah, I don't know everything that you know.
But this is what Biden launched his campaign on. Biden made a public announcement to launch his presidency in 2020 off of this lie. And you didn't know that. 5 years later.
I don't know why you're getting on me about this, but
it's again, I apologize. I'm not trying to get on you. It's the exasperation largely with liberals.
Yeah, so you see that, you heard that, okay? So let's actually go ahead and roll the clip so that everybody's familiar with what President Trump actually said, and then we're going to get into this.
You're putting what you're calling the alt-left and white supremacists on the same moral plane.
I'm not putting anybody on a moral plane. What I'm saying is this. You had a group on one side and you had a group on the other, and they came at each other with clubs, and it was vicious, and it was horrible, and it was a horrible thing to watch. But there is another side. There was a group on this side, you can call them the left, or you've just called them the left, that came violently attacking the other group. So you can say what you want, but that's the way it is.
On both sides, sir? You said there was hatred, there was violence on both sides.
Well, I do think there's blame. Yes, I think there's blame on both sides. You look at both sides. I think there's blame on both sides, and I have no doubt about it, and you don't have any doubt about it either. And if you reported it accurately, you would say.
Neo-Nazis started this. They showed up in Charlottesville. They showed up in Charlottesville to protest.
Excuse me. They didn't put themselves down as neo, and you had some very bad people in that group. But you also had people that were very fine people on both sides. You had people in that group. Excuse me. I saw the same pictures as you did. You had people in that group that were there to protest the taking down of, to them, a very, very important statue and the renaming of a park from Robert E. Lee to another name. No, George Washington was a slave owner. Was George Washington a slave owner? So will George Washington now lose his status? Are we going to take down, are we going to take down statues to George Washington? How about Thomas Jefferson? What do you think of Thomas Jefferson? You like him? Okay, good. Are we going to take down the statue? Because he was a major slave owner. Now, we're going to take down his statue. So you know what? It's fine. You're changing history. You're changing culture. And you had people, and I'm not talking about the neo-Nazis and the white nationalists, because they should be condemned totally. But you had many people in that group other than neo-Nazis and white nationalists, okay? And the press has treated them absolutely unfairly. Now, in the other group also, you had some fine people, but you also had troublemakers, and you see them come with the black outfits and with the helmets and with the baseball bats. You had a lot of bad people in the other group too.
Treated unfairly, sir. I'm sorry, I just didn't understand what you were saying. You were saying the press has treated white nationalists unfairly? No, I just didn't understand what you were saying.
No. There were people in that rally, and I looked the night before. If you look, there were people protesting very quietly the taking down of the statue of Robert E. Lee. I'm sure in that group there were some bad ones. The following day it looked like they had some rough, bad people, neo-Nazis, white nationalists, whatever you want to call them. But you had a lot of people in that group that were there to innocently protest and very legally protest because, you know, I don't know if you know, they had a permit. The other group didn't have a permit. So I only tell you this. There are two sides to a story. I thought what took place was a horrible moment for our country, a horrible moment. But there are two sides to the country.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. I mean, clearly in context, President Trump was not referring to the so-called white nationalists and the neo-Nazis, right? Basically what he was saying was that, hey, you know, there are very fine people on both sides in regards to people who want the statue to be taken down and want the statue to stay up, right? But he's saying that, hey, I'm not talking about the, you know, neo-Nazis and white nationalists, right? Obviously, they should be condemned, and he said that, right? But again, the mainstream liberal media, they didn't care. They ran with the narrative that this guy, that President Trump was saying that neo-Nazis and white nationalists are very fine people, right? This is what they ran with. And when it came time to correct that, which they did later come out years later and say, oh, well, more context is needed. Well, they didn't cover that as much as they covered what he said when it initially happened, right? So they pushed the hoax harder than they pushed the correction, right? That is the problem with the media, okay? And I'm not surprised by this because I've seen the mainstream liberal media come out and say, well, President Trump has never condemned white nationalists, right? He never condemned white supremacy and all that other stuff, right? Even though President Trump has condemned it like 1,000 times.
How many times do I have to reject? I've rejected David Duke. I've rejected the KKK, the Ku Klux Klan. From the time I'm 5 years old, I rejected them. I put it on Twitter last week. When I put out that I reject KKK and David Duke, nobody picks it up. You know why they don't? Because they don't want to pick it up. Now, I have been asked this question so many times. I have rejected it so many times. Maybe I wasn't clear or something. I mean, how many times do I have to say it? Don't forget, I told CNN when Chris Christie endorsed me, a very good endorsement, and one of the questions, that question was asked, and I rejected it there. That news conference was like a day before.
You
so
said,
I said to myself, how many times do I have to reject or disavow?
Let me ask you this question. What about David Duke is saying to his supporters and followers, vote for Donald Trump. White supremacists are saying,
John, if he says it, he says it, okay? Do I want it? No.
And
do
you
I
want the supporters?
No, I don't want anything.
What do you think of white
times?
supremacists, by the way?
I don't like any group of hate. Hate groups are not for me. But I've said this before. The press hates me to say it. They just don't want to pick it up.
I totally disavow the Ku Klux Klan. I totally disavow David Duke.
When you say the party is self-destructing, what do you see as the biggest problem with the Reform Party right now?
Well, you've got David Duke just joined, a bigot, a racist, a problem. I mean, this is not exactly the people you want in your party. I denounce white supremacy, okay? Wait, are you listening? I denounce white supremacy. Okay. What's your next question? I denounce white supremacy. Okay. You start off with white supremacy, I denounce it.
Are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups and to say that they need to stand down and not add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
Sure,
Are you
I'm
prepared
willing to do
specifically?
that. I totally disavow the Ku Klux Klan. I totally disavow David Duke.
Any group of hate, I am, whether it's white supremacy, whether it's any other kind of supremacy, whether it's Antifa, whether it's any group of hate, I am very concerned about it, and I'll do something about it.
In one voice, our nation must condemn racism, bigotry, and white supremacy.
But it doesn't matter, right? Because according to the liberals in the media, okay, at the time, again, this especially was true before the 2020 election. Trump, he didn't condemn white supremacy. He never condemned white supremacy at all. Again, this is what these people were saying.
By the way, 4 days ago, the administration put out a plan which they will go after KKK, Antifa, anyone else that acts like a domestic terrorist. That was laid out 4 days ago.
So why didn't he condemn white supremacists? So why didn't he condemn white supremacists? Because a lot of these times in these riots that I was on, not with Freddie Gray, but no, he didn't. He didn't.
Yes,
Today he did not.
Tonight,
no,
he
didn't.
Very,
he talked
very
about,
clearly did
no.
tonight. Very
he
clearly
did not
he
say
did tonight,
white.
No,
he didn't. He didn't say white supremacists. He said Proud Boys. Run the clip.
Your own statement about Antifa versus Biden's statement about Antifa.
What do I need to wait? Hold on. Wait a minute. Let's be clear. I don't. Wait a minute. Let's be clear. I don't have to reconcile my statement because I'm not Joe Biden and I'm not running for president, nor am I a surrogate. No. That's on Joe Biden. So Joe Biden will have to reconcile that. I'm not a surrogate. I'm not looking for a job. I'm not looking for favor with either one of these candidates. I said that Antifa has interrupted a lot of peaceful protests as well as white supremacists. True. So I don't have to reconcile Joe Biden. He needs to reconcile that. I'm not running for president, sir.
Yeah. So it's damned if you do, damned if you don't. And this is why I'm kind of glad that President Trump stopped doing that, right? He stopped coming out here and essentially saying what the media wants him to say, okay? Because ultimately it doesn't matter what he says. The media, in their mind, they have a narrative, right? And they want to put out there, well, President Trump is a white nationalist. He's a racist. So it doesn't matter if he comes out and he condemns racism. It doesn't matter if he condemns white supremacy. Their minds are already made up. They've already put the narrative out there, right? And when it turns out that the narrative was wrong, that the media was lying, they never is loud about the correction as they were about the accusation, right? They're never going to do that. And that's how the media rolls. They write a little article and say, hey, you know that thing that we lied about, right, years ago? Yeah, we're correcting it now. And they put it in an article and they keep it moving. They don't come out here and have wall-to-wall coverage about how they were wrong, right? How they falsely accused the president of the United States of being a racist or not condemning white supremacy or whatever, right? They never do that. They never do that. And again, that's what you're seeing here. This is why I'm not surprised that this liberal comedian was unaware, because the media went out of their way to make sure that people weren't aware that they lied, right? That's essentially what's happening here. That's exactly what's happening. But this is why alternative media is becoming so popular. This is why the trust in the mainstream media is at an all-time low. Because for them, it's about narrative. It's not about facts. It's not about journalism. It's about narrative, okay? And again, fast forward to 2025. I mean, we've seen this for the past 7 to 8 years straight, whether that be Russia, inflation, the border, Joe Biden, and his cognitive abilities. I mean, they just lie about everything because to them, it is more important to hate Trump, right? It is more important to attack Trump and to smear Trump than it is to tell the truth, to make sure that the American people are properly informed, even when they get things wrong. So, you know, ultimately, this brainwashed liberal, he's living in his own bubble of misinformation / disinformation, and he doesn't even know it. And again, the funny part about it, and the frustrating part, to be honest with you, is that they accuse everybody else of living in a bubble of misinformation, disinformation, where these people are clearly misinformed, right? They're misinformed. This dude didn't bother to go watch the clip or to read the transcript himself to see, oh, wait, clearly in context, President Trump is not talking about white supremacists or neo-Nazis or whatever. The media lied, right? No, he didn't go do the research. He just took whatever CNN and MSNBC said, and he believed it as if it was gospel, right? They said, well, I guess President Trump said that the white supremacists and neo-Nazis are very fine people, right? And that's just how it is. That is the world that we live in. And this is why I do what I do, right? This is why I have my channel. This is why alternative media is becoming so popular. And the mainstream liberal media is not. They're losing viewership. Nobody trusts the media. They're just as unpopular as the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party has lied about everything, and the media has lied on behalf of the Democrats. Therefore, this is why you see the most unpopular entities in this country are the Democrat Party and the liberal media. So, you know, hey, if these liberals choose to be misinformed, fine. But I'm hoping that we live in a country where people are seeking alternative sources of news and doing their own research, fact-checking things for themselves, and they're coming to their own conclusions, right? And I think that's part of the reason why President Trump won in 2024 is because you have platforms like X and other platforms that are allowing independent journalists, okay, commentators, to push back against the narratives from the media. And I think that is one of the main things that really helped out Trump in this election. Okay, so you know, again, this is a very sad clip, to be honest with you, right? But I'm not surprised at all. This happens all the time when you talk to normies. They are completely clueless about President Trump and the truth, right? And again, it's media's fault because they're much louder when it comes to the accusation than they are when it comes to the correction. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.